This video is sponsored by the free-to-play game World of Warships. Out of 2,221 men on the Bismarck, only 115 survived. 110 were captured by the British, and only a mere 5 were rescued by the Germans. This video covers the witness reports of one of these 5 men, which are found in the archives. But before that, a short word about the sponsor of this video, the free-to-play game World of Warships, which is available on PC and consoles as well. Fight it out in 12 vs 12 arenas. Download World of Warships for free. Just click on the first link in the description. This also helps the channel. Be sure to use the promo code Warships during the registration on the Wargaming portal to receive the following freebies: 500 doubloons, 7 days of premium account time, 2 million credits, a free 4-tier ship, and a commander with 6 skill points, together worth 25 euros. Note, this promo is only for new players. The game features more than 40 maps with dynamic weather and great effects. The various ship classes allow for very different approaches. Want to be fast and sneaky? Use your destroyer and deliver a fan of torpedoes. Want to stay behind but dish out a lot of damage? Carriers are your thing. There are also battleships, cruisers and submarines. In total, the game features 11 nations and more than 600 ships, including the Bismarck, the Yamato, the Enterprise and HMS Prinz of Wales. The ships are based on actual blueprints. Now back to the Bismarck. First, a short overview of the timeline of events. The Bismarck's first and last mission was Operation Rheinübung, Rhine exercise. It started on 18th May 1941 with Bismarck and the cruiser Prinz Eugen. On 24th May 1941 they were engaged by the British battlecruiser HMS Hood and battleship HMS Prinz of Wales. The first suffering a catastrophic explosion. This resulted in the Royal Navy hunting down the Bismarck. On 26th May, an attack by swordfish torpedo bombers from the HMS Ark Royal managed a torpedo hit that caused critical damage to the steering of the Bismarck. As such, she could not longer head for a safe port. On the 27th May, Bismarck sank after being engaged by several British ships. Only about 5% of the Bismarck's crew survived. Most of them were captured by the British, but 5 men evaded capture and were picked up by German ships. Before we look at the survivor report, we shortly need to discuss the context of that report. The file is classified with Geheime Kommandosache, literally secret command matter, which was the second highest German military classification. Yet more interestingly, the header notes that the sailor was part of a Verhandlung, so a trial. Sadly, the file provides no further details in terms of questions or other information. The answer is basically a chronology of the witnessed events from 23rd May to 27th May 1941, besides the last few sentences, which indicate 2 other questions, but more on this later. I asked some historians, and Roman Töppel noted that this trial likely was done to find out if this sailor or one of the others might have abandoned their positions too early. The naval historian Markus Faulkner noted that for the Royal Navy the commanding officer was court-martialed after a ship was lost, even if it was obvious that it was not his fault, and the case would then be dismissed. Yet in the case of our survivor we talk about a man with the rank Matrosengefreiter, which was the second lowest rank and similar to a seaman apprentice or previously a seaman second class in the US Navy. As such, we can rule out that he was trialed for the loss of the Bismarck. Since we got that out of the way, we will look at the report of Herbert Manthey. His combat position was usually the 5th 20mm AA gun on the starboard side and once on the port side, if I am not mistaken. The interview is dated on the 2nd June 1941. So shortly after the sinking on the 27th May 1941. According to Garzke, Dulin and Jurens, this report was presented to Hitler on the 6th June 1941, when the commander of the Kriegsmarine had a briefing with Hitler about the Bismarck operation. Important, don't take this account at face value. I will provide additional information on the current research in many cases. Furthermore, I selected parts that seem particularly interesting, like drop of morale, specific information about combat, as well as various kill claims. So let us look at the report. We start with the battle between Bismarck and the Hood on 24th May 1941. Herbert Manthey noted about the battle that the AA gunners were ordered to go into cover. due to the enemy shrapnel and blast effect of the Bismarck's guns. Yet due to interest, many comrades stayed on the deck. He noted, "I myself was under cover during this firing. After dropping the second salvo on Hood, the command center announced, 'Enemy on fire.' At the third salvo, enemy exploded. At that moment, I ran out onto the open deck with other comrades and saw a large black cloud of smoke." He continues that the men were enthusiastic, and even more so once it was announced that the enemy ships were the Hood and King George V, which were called the largest battleships in the English fleet. Note that the second ship was actually HMS Prince of Wales, which was a King George V class battleship, but HMS King George V was not part in this battle. Manthey then talks about various damages the Bismarck has received, although it seems there was some disagreement among the various crew members. He explains that damage control parties like divers were sent to inspect the damage and used tubes to transfer oil from the damaged parts into the undamaged areas. This seems to be correct. Oil was transferred from the forward tanks to the aft bunkers. From what we know, Bismarck had received 3 hits from Prince of Wales 356mm main guns. For later that day, he notes the approach of a scout plane at around noon 24th May 1941, which looked like a Dornier 18, stating that according to Hersey, a friend-foe signal was requested and correctly answered. Yet once it was in the range of 4,000 meters, the commander of the aircraft defense identified the plane as an American type. Hence, fire was opened. According to current research, the first contact was not at noon, but 15:55. Although the range and American type are correct, it was a British PBY Catalina, which was an American design. Of particular interest is the view on the air attack of HMS Victorious on the 24th May 1941, because here there's some severe difference between the witness account and the current research. Herbert Manthey notes that around 2300, 3 squadrons of 27 biplanes attacked. Meanwhile, only 9 Swordfish biplanes and 3 former recon planes were launched. The latter 3 were not biplanes. The attack occurred at around 23:30 by 8 Swordfish biplanes, since one was lost in the clouds. Manthey states that all available calibers, including the 38cm main guns of the Bismarck, opened fire and that 5 airplanes were shot down according to the statements by comrades, which later was confirmed by Superior. Yet there is another sentence where he notes how many really were shot down is not known to him. None of the attacking planes were lost according to current research. Generally, kill claims are usually far too high. Additionally, keep in mind that the planes attack during night in bad weather. As such, misreporting is much easier to happen in such a case. One Swordfish was able to score a torpedo hit, and this is the same in the witness report. Probably the most interesting aspect about this air attack is that Manthey states that at 0300 on 25th May 1941 via telephone it was noted that of the 27 attacking planes, only 1 was able to land at the aircraft carrier. Sadly, there is no further information about it. The British lost 2 Fulmars that could not find their way back to the carrier and had to ditch, but how this claim was justified is interesting. And it seems not only to me, since in the original German document there is an exclamation mark in handwriting next to these lines. The next part is about the statement by the fleet commander on 25th May 1941. Herbert Manthey recalls from memory that at noon the fleet commander, Admiral Lüttens, stated that the operation was commerce raiding, not the engagement of enemy warships. Yet that due to treason, the enemy was able to engage them at the Denmark Strait. It is followed by a statement that now it is the time to fight, to win, or to die. Manthey notes that after this announcement, the mood of the crew became serious. This is similar to the statements of the other 4 survivors, although one noted that the morale dropped significantly and stated it probably would have been better if they were not informed about the dire situation. The statement by the fleet commander must be seen in context of the scuttling of the Admiral Graf Spee in December 1939. Shortly afterwards, the commander of the Kriegsmarine stated, "The German warship fights with the full commitment of its crew to the last shell until it is victorious or sinks with its flag flying." The next major event is the air attack on 26th May 1941 by HMS Ark Royal. Manthey notes between 2100 and 2200 about 16 enemy planes at high altitude were spotted and air alarm was given, yet the planes were not engaged. About 10 minutes later he witnessed 3 enemy biplanes coming out of the clouds, which immediately was followed by many more aircraft. All anti-aircraft guns opened fire. He notes that the biplane attacks were cunning and that 7 airplanes were shot down. He adds that he does not know how many torpedoes hit, but in his opinion it was 2 hits. He particularly notes problems with the steering and the change in speed. According to the current research, the following happened. The actual attack started earlier, namely at 2053. This time the number of reported enemy planes and actual attackers was almost spot on, 16 in the report while 15 attacked. Yet none was shot down. Although 4 sustained heavy damage, additionally Bismarck was hit by 3, not 2 torpedoes. One of these torpedo hits jammed both rudders at 15-degree angle and the spaces of the rudder complex were flooded as well. Attempts to repair failed, as were the attempts to use the hand rudder. Manthey continues his reports that the Bismarck received messages about German reinforcements for the next day, noting 81 aircraft, 1 U-boat that should be nearby, while all the other U-boats were informed. Furthermore, 1 tanker and 2 tugboats were on its way, as such morale increased. According to current research, the message to Bismarck did not state the number of planes, but the number 81 planes comes up as well and was likely spread among the ship. About the final hours of the Bismarck on 27 May 1941, Manthey reported that the anti-aircraft crews went into cover. After that there were no orders and shelling intensified. He noted that there was the impression that Bismarck was fired upon from all sides. At first he took cover with about 20 other men near the aft gunnery station, which was below the aft rangefinder. After several nearby hits, they moved behind the turrets Caesar and Dora, while bringing about 5 to 6 live crafts with them behind the turrets. Yet due to a hit, all except 1 or 2 of these were destroyed and many were wounded. He continues that at this time turret Dora was still firing, in all directions. Then he and his comrades spotted a rubber dinghy between the turrets and unfastened it. They then moved behind turret Dora. After a nearby hit, a wave took the rubber dinghy, him and 2 of his comrades into the water. They all tried to reach the rubber dinghy, but due to the splashes from shells they needed about 50 minutes to reach it. Then they lost sight of Bismarck, only seeing smoke. He notes they did not hear an explosion. They drifted without provisions. Around 1900 they were picked up by U-74, which searched 2 more days for survivors but only found dead bodies and debris. The final 2 paragraphs are short and indicate that these were answers to specific questions, namely about a radar called DT-Gerät, DT device, to which Manthey states he never heard about it. The last sentence is that he did not know about damage to the radio systems or the message center, nor that the radio antennas were hit. A few words about Herbert Manthey. He was very lucky to survive the sinking of the Bismarck. If he was lucky to evade capture by the British is debatable, since he either died in July 1944 or in April 1945 during defense of Berlin, depending on the source. To summarize, in general the report seems to be mostly in line with the historical research, yet the aspect that stands out most is that the air attack by HMS Victorious has 3 times the planes noted that actually attacked, while the attack by HMS Royal is just off by 1 single airplane. As such, I suspect the light and weather conditions and maybe other factors had a major influence here. Another explanation could be that the higher numbers of the first attack was announced after the attack across the ship, while his report does not note a similar announcement after the Royal attack. Finally, I found it interesting how the change in morale was discussed and that the sailor specifically mentioned the various aspects that influenced it. Now, don't forget to download World of Warships for free. Just click on the first link in the description. This also helps the channel. Be sure to use the promo code Warships during the registration to receive the following freebies: 500 doubloons, 7 days of premium account time, 2 million credits, a free tier 4 ship and a commander with 6 skill points. Thank you to World of Warships for sponsoring this video. Big thank you to Markus Faulkner and Roman Töppel for answering various questions. Thank you to Andrew for reviewing the script. Special thanks to Drafiniffel for the anatomy of the Bismarck. Thank you for watching and see you next time.